This is iFanboy Pick of the Week, number 948, brought to you by, mostly movie references, and iFanboy listeners just like you. Hey, I'm Josh Flanagan. This is my co-host, Connor Kilpatrick.
Hello, Josh.
Oh, it's sweet to hear that voice. And joining us, third chair this week, Dr. Ryan Haupt.
I'll be the salty to Connor sweet.
Ooh.
Is that the way it goes?
I was like, well, I don't know.
It depends on I think this has been a fine day. I don't feel salty.
Here's the question. Which am I? Like, I'm salty, but with a sense of humor.
I think that's umami. Isn't that umami?
You know what? I don't understand that concept, which is not an invitation to explain it. This is iFanboy Pick of the Week.
I don't believe you.
I don't believe you for a second.
I wasn't going to. I really wasn't. I was like, I'm just going to let that one go. I saw the ball come across the plate and I said, nope.
Whatever, though. Your cerebellum lit up or whatever part. Every week, one of us picks the book they like the best from their... Nope. Jesus Christ.
949 episodes.
I'm dragging. Every week, one of us picks the book they like best from their stack of comic books. We call that the Pick of the Week. Because the first one has said it, and we just agree that that's the case, even though we might not agree because it might be a terrible pick.
Exactly.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? We would say it just because we'll talk about that comic book. We will talk about other comic books from the week that are discussed and listed in painstaking detail. There's a patron pick. There's listener mail. It should be a fun time. Theoretically, this is going to wake me up some, which is going to be great because I have to go to bed right after it. Whatever. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure that you go to your podcast app and you set iFanboy to auto download as opposed to auto defay, which is a different thing. It really I just keep getting older. It really helps us out if you do that. If you are listening on Pocket Cast, you can give the show a rating.
Right.
I said, there you go. Thank you. You need to be subscribed.
Listen, I was possibly watching baseball while you were talking. Go. Keep going.
Opening day for basketball is 1 month. You need to be subscribed and have downloaded a few episodes. Less than a month, 3 weeks. You need to be subscribed and have a few downloaded a few episodes. That sentence needs to be rewritten before you can rate it. So please take a minute. Give us a nice rating if you can. We appreciate that very much. We appreciate you anyway. We will get on with the show. There is a spoiler warning for comics, meaning we will talk about what happens in the comics. I know it's a shocking concept, and yet we say it. Ryan, you had the pick of the week.
Yes, I did. I also think Tom Cruise wants you to turn off motion smoothing on the podcast player. I think it's important.
That's always, absolutely.
If you're out there and you have motion smoothing on, I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't want you to listen.
I'm not convinced that Ron doesn't have it on right now.
He did. I remember.
He always had it on. Always.
That's how bad. I remember we went to his house and we were watching Lord of the Rings, and I was like, "Do you have motion smoothing?" This was over 20 years ago, and I haven't forgotten it.
No, every time we'd go, he would have it on again.
I just want to point out to all the listeners and viewers and creeps that I did not take the umami bait, and they walked right into.
We have too many books to talk about to have this conversation.
Right into the motion.
But you you hit me in the sweet spot.
The umami spot.
Like, you know how like people want to complain about traffic or taxes? Fucking motion smoothing. Go ahead.
The pick of the week, it was Absolute Power Chapter 4 Showdown, written by Mark Waid, drawn by Dan Mora, colors by Alejandro Sanchez, and letters by Ariana Mar. And I would say there was no strong standout for pick this week. I actually had kind of a hard time distinguishing between books that were all like good to very good. And I would say none that really hit me as excellent. But the more I reflected on sort of the story beats, the gosh moments in this book, the sort of the way things concluded and came around and set the tone for the DC universe that is to follow, I just found myself coming back to this book as the one that stuck with me the most of everything in my stack. So the story is sort of the final confrontation between the heroes and Amanda Waller, and through a couple of twists and turns, they managed to get their powers back and shut down the Amazos and defeat Amanda Waller and cut off this DC universe from the multiverse, which feels like a switch they keep flipping back and forth, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time keeping track or feeling what the stakes of that decision might be. But yeah, like I said, just a lot of really good Gosh moments. I think my personal favorite that really stood out to me is I noticed it earlier in the issue. I love when Hal has to like reinforce his own arm, like when he's holding his own arm to like because the ring is so powerful, and then he's starting to lose it, and then two Flashes show up and help him, and they also reinforce the arm, and I was like, oh my gosh, we got three hands holding the arm, and like, and I was like, that's great. It's like,
was that Wally?
I don't know who it was. It was Jay.
Because they're all wearing dumb modified suits because they didn't have powers, and I was like, wait, which Flash is that?
I think it was Wally because that was he had like that suit on his like speeder bike. His
is that's his costume?
Well, no, just for this show, this story because they don't have powers. They didn't
have access to the Speed Force, and he was
okay.
He was riding a bike that was like half Akira, half Endor speeder.
Uh-huh.
I liked the reveal with Ollie. I liked that he had sort of had a mind bug planted in him by John, and that it expired, but he needed it to convince Amanda Waller that he was really on her side, and none of the other heroes knew it. And Batman and John had a nice little terse exchange, and I thought Superman in the regeneration suit looked cool, and I just dug it. It was a fun issue, and I've really enjoyed seeing Dick Grayson get the chance to step up and be a leader of everyone in the DC universe. It just feels like such a perfect fit for that character.
It's actually character progress in a way. I mean, you've seen him do that in other books, but whoever it was was it in this one, I think, or where it was like they were trying to find a leader and he just started doing it, like, and they were
it was an earlier issue of this.
But did they try to make him head of the? Did they try to make him leader of the Justice League at some point before that?
Well, there was
and then he went and did the Titans instead.
A long time ago, they think they did, and that could be 5 or 10 years. But for a while, we haven't had a Justice League book or in the DCU a Justice League team. So the Titans have been the de facto lead team, which no one has. I'm a huge Titans fan, but no one believed that or bought it, and it didn't make any sense within the world. But
which they just admitted to in the text.
Right. I liked this issue, but my problems with it have nothing to do with the issue. So I want to make that clear. I thought this was good, but this was 4 issues.
Yeah,
and
it was short.
I knew this was coming.
It didn't feel the entirety of the 4 issues didn't feel like I was reading a story. It felt like I was reading an outline.
I can see that.
And Josh and I talked about this. I think was it last week or the week before? How over in Wonder Woman and Damian broke out everybody. That was like a big moment in the story, and we were like, "Why is it happening in the side book?" It's because there's only 4 issues. They even mention it here, like, "Oh, everyone broke out." And I feel very strongly that an event, you have to be able to just read the event book and get a satisfying story. You can get a better story if you read other things, but you have to be able to read the event book itself and get a satisfying story. And I don't think you would have gotten that just reading Absolute Power, which I have enjoyed the entire way through. I think it's been a good story, but it just was too light.
I mean, it's a method, but I think that there are ways that you have to do this method. If you're going to do this method, then you need to say you have to read these books to get the whole story. Like, you have to give it an order. They did that with the X-Men stuff, or, or maybe not just that one, but there are others. When it's billed like this, it does seem like the Absolute Power should be the only one you have to read, and everything should be in there. A la Civil War was like this, or others that I can't think of. But I definitely had that same. I knew from reading this that like there was a bit where they said, "Oh, they broke everybody out," and I was like, "That's weird," because we'd already talked about it. But there was another bit too in a book that I was not reading, and I was like, "Oh, that's I guess that happened over there." Because like Damian was a really big player in this whole story, except it wasn't in this book,
right? Which
was weird.
Yeah.
That said, I like the idea of a big event that's going to last 4 months and call it that. Like, I'm okay with that, but I think it just needs to be moved around a little bit.
And they're oversized issues. I get it. They're slightly oversized. They're not giant, but they're like 10 pages more. But also, I understand how hard it is to do an event. It's a very fine line to walk. It's a very small needlehead to thread. All the metaphors you want to use.
And also, you have to experiment while you're doing it.
Right.
So let's try it like this.
Is it too long? Is it too short? Is it too much in the book? Like, there's all kinds of problems. Everyone complains. I get it. So I'm recognizing that it's hard to do, but I just feel like 4 is a really short number if you're telling a giant story with everyone in the DC universe.
That's a good point too, is that the size of this story was quite big.
Yeah.
In terms of like everybody is affected and everybody is part of it, where sometimes it can be a little bit smaller. I mean, I think the vampire story they just did in Marvel, Blood something.
Blood. Oh, 6 or 5? 6 maybe?
5,
6?
maybe? Yeah.
6.
But that was good.
Yeah.
Like that was fine.
But that's still, you got the main gist of it through the main book, and then the rest. If you wanted to follow Spider-Man, you could follow Spider-Man. If you wanted to follow the X-Men, you could go follow the X-Men.
What's weird about that was like some of them had nothing to do. Like remember it doesn't matter, the Midnight Suns, which is the one with Blade in it, and it was like, oh, this has nothing to do with anything.
And that kind of had the same problem. Remember at the very end, when like some major Blade stuff happened in the side book and not the main book.
Right.
So I realize it's hard. No, but let's get back to this book. I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Act like I'm shitting on this pick. I'm not. It's just it was just what I thought while reading it, was that, you know, it was just strangely constructed. But man, if Dan Mora isn't 4 or 5 people, I'd be shocked, because he draws so much.
Several kids in a trench coat.
Very talented children. There's a shot here, the shot I think really you were talking about, Ryan, on page 6, where Nightwing is jumping out with all of the characters behind him, leading the charge. And I mean, that takes a long time to draw. I mean, this is not nothing.
Yeah, but he also has other pages which are just multiple shots of Amanda Waller yelling. So that's
True.
where you make up time.
That's also true. But as we talked about before, look, in comics, anything can happen. But man, I don't know how you bring Amanda Waller back to being sort of a
major threat again.
No, just the
government official.
Yeah, like she's always lived in the sort of middle ground of, you know, good guy mostly, who does bad things, but she's full on villain here, and I don't know how you get back from that.
You know what's interesting though is that her being full on villain in this, and let's be honest, this is Civil War. I mean, that's just the same deal. It's just that the only one person went to the other side. And oh my God, can you believe that Ollie wasn't really siding with the bad guy? But her argument wasn't at all valid, so there was no gray area to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like she was I don't know, like you could have.
It might have. There was another miniseries, and it might have been. There was a Absolute Power origin about her. I read the first issue and I thought it was terrible and didn't read any more of it. So that might have given you the whys. But again, those things need to happen in the main story. If someone walks off the street and says, "What's happening in DC?" Oh, they're just doing Absolute Power. They need to be able to getting all the important bits in the main book. And I think this had too many things happening. But you're right. Like there was no real. If you were just reading this book or maybe some other ones, there was no real motivation to why she went so full in this time.
Right. You know, and so she's kind of a bad guy, but I don't know. They could have. It's a choice. You know, they kind of made, you know, raging insane, you know, person who thinks they're doing good but is doing very bad. I mean, and I'd say like at the end of the last issue, that felt like we were about to come into the climax. And then it's the same thing. And I don't mean to harp on this point, but as you got into this book, it felt like we were already on the way downhill. And it was like all the problems were solved. We just had to go through the motions. And I thought that part was, again, I enjoyed this. But when we're talking about something this big, it's very interesting to sort of figure out how it worked. And I felt like, we got the solution for the Amazos. We got the whatever. Maybe that was something that happened in another book. It was some Superman, maybe, when she was with Zatanna. But it kind of the dots didn't connect. I was like,
no, it happened here. It just happened very quickly. It was where that Batman, Blue Beetle, and was it Dr. Morrow? One of those fucking guys. He was like welding something, or, you know, and he's like, here it is. This will shut them all down. Like it just happened in 2 panels.
It's very Silver Age,
which is fine. I just, you know, it was very quick. Anyway.
I mean, page to page though, like I got nothing to complain about. I can't hold a thing against, certainly not Dan Mora, and Mark Waid stuff's always a pleasure to read with these characters. So, you know, even if like afterwards you look at it, the time I'm not really feeling it.
And I thought the little like way they dealt with Amanda Waller with the psychic block of like, I mean, it was almost a patron power of like, you know, the tip of your tongue. Like the answer will always be on the tip of your tongue. You'll never be able to get to it. Like that was, I thought, actually kind of dastardly in a way of like, wow, that's kind of not a heroic choice to make to mess with somebody's head like that.
What
Identity Crisis or whatever?
Is it Identity Crisis?
The Brad Meltzer one?
Yeah, they take people's memory away.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
including Zatanna mind wiped members of the Justice League.
She wouldn't have done that.
Well, to be fair, Dreamer had been killed, so
no, they did back that up. Like it was like, no, this is me, and I got a bone to pick with you, and also. She's awful.
Even though maybe pieces were missing along the way, at the very end when they are having a conversation with Ollie and he's sort of, you know, saying his piece, and then they say the Trinity kind of looks at each other and says, "Well, we do have a plan," and they show the new Watchtower and Justice League Unlimited. Like I was just like, yeah, like fist bump, yay, Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the next book real quick. But so in the second to last page, well, I guess it's the last couple of pages. The epilogue. We get the ramifications, right? So all these stories have to end with ramifications. So the first one that Ryan mentioned already is that the door to the multiverse is closed.
Right.
Bibbidi bobbidi boop, doesn't matter. It's just comic book science. The door is closed, so they no longer can move between the multiverse, which is fine. That just, after every event, it goes back and forth. After Identity Crisis, after Infinite Crisis, they close the door and then they reopen it later. It happens all the time. Baryon has no more Flash power, so now everyone gets Wally back. And then it got a little confusing. It was like, okay, so because they're kind of mad at Ollie
which I didn't understand
because he didn't tell them. That's why they're mad.
He couldn't.
But he wasn't supposed to.
Right, I know.
It's the exact same thing that happened with Firestar in the X-Men.
Right. So,
and Batman would be smart enough to be like, yeah, that makes sense.
He'd respect it.
Yes.
Although his ego is so massive, though, he can't help but be mad about it. But Red Tornado is probably irreparably damaged. We see his pieces like sort of hanging there. And then Batman says, when the superpowers were released back into people, not all of them returned to their original hosts. And we see Black Canary shooting laser beams out of her eyes, which did not factor into Birds of Prey later, which we'll talk about later.
And Plastic Man with muscles.
Plastic Man with muscles.
You can do that anyway.
I couldn't figure it out.
I didn't either. And so I guess we'll deal with that. But the big one, which we'll talk about next, is the Reformation of the Justice League, which is the next book. But I mean, I thought this was fun. I really did. And Wade and Morrow have great chemistry. And if only, I just wish it was longer because it was a lot of fun. I thought the story was good. It just, when it's this short, it's hard to get those moments you want to get in these kind of stories because it has to move so quickly. And you just can't count on other books doing them as well. So
I also felt like it was a good culmination to quite a while of too much Amanda Waller. I was like, all right, at least they were building to something. But now let's put her away for a while.
Right. Good. Great. until the TV show comes out, and then we have to bring her back. But this was fun. I think there was a lot. This was the all-in week, right? So we had DC All-In Special #1, which is the next book on our list, which kicks off, sort of explains what's happening now in our new DC universe. And then we had 2 comics that took place in that new continuity. But first of all, so the All-In Special was written by Josh Williamson and Scott Snyder, and it was a flip book. So you had one story that met in the middle with another story that flipped from the other direction. And if you're digital, it just nothing changed.
Like, I don't remember that. Every time I tried to flip it, it would flip back, and I was like, "God damn you, iPad!"
I think Daniel Sampere is really getting really good. He's been drawing, some of the stuff in Wonder Woman, some of the Wonder Woman with Tom King, and he's turning into a really solid, strong artist, which I think is great because we need more of those. But here, the big thing is, and I'm glad you were here for this, Ryan, is that they finally, and they've never done this before, but they're finally doing in the comics Justice League Unlimited, which is basically every hero is in the Justice League.
Yeah.
Everyone's in the league. And so when there's a giant crisis, they all come together, but otherwise they sort of can use who's available and or who is best suited for a mission or assignment. But in this, we get basically everyone gets a card and gets invited to the satellite, and they're all there. And so I thought that was interesting that we've never really done that. And it was a long time ago that cartoon came on.
Yeah, I'm legitimately excited. Like, I've not been excited about a Justice League book or story for a long time, and this has got me hooked. This is a good hook for Ryan.
I didn't realize they'd never done that, and so this is good because my instinct was it's kind of a cop out to just be like, okay, everyone's in the Justice League now, and so we won't get a chance to focus on a group of people and their dynamics, which is really good when it's done really well. Whereas this could be more like a mission of the week thing. And there's value to that.
We don't know what's going to happen. I suspect there will be a main team that we focus on, and then the people will come and go as needed. That's my guess. I have no idea. I could be totally wrong.
I just found out, didn't read half of this.
So that's there you go.
Josh, do you remember the multiple texts I sent today when I said I'm halfway through this particular book? It was because I reached a natural stopping point and knew I had to keep going.
I had checked off all my books at that point. I thought I was done, so I wasn't paying any attention to what you were saying about the books at all.
You guys got to scroll until it stops. until the file stops.
I just had to take a break.
So here's the deal. And this doesn't happen to me that much anymore. It used to be a bigger problem. But in the digital version that I am reading, the way that they work is you read the book and then covers pop up at the end, all like variant covers. And so I got to the end of the story and then there was a cover. And that to me in every DC preview I've ever read means it's the end of it. So that's like the cover. That's when I know.
Right, but you got to keep scrolling until it tells you you're done. That's what I'm saying.
He didn't.
Yeah.
When you scroll to the end of the file, it pops up a little screen and then it lets you go back to the thing. Anyway, there was the second part of the story. So they're all in the Justice League. Booster Gold is sort of the framing device.
Good Booster Gold story.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it got a little chaotic, I have to admit, where when Darkseid shows up, it's a Darkseid we've never seen before. He's got a axe for a hand and he's wearing a cloak, and they're calling him Spectre Darkseid, and I don't know how they got that from his look, but whatever. Other than the cloak, it doesn't look like Spectre's cloak at all. And then he sort of cuts a hole in reality. Suddenly, Batman's wearing a different suit, and people are different. And then they all attack him, and then they kill him. And he says, "Thank you." Darkseid ends, and then but they're left with a giant hole in reality. And then through that hole, they find this other planet called Alpha World. It's the one with the absolute books. And so they have this world they need to explore because their sensors can't get anything out of it. And so they send Booster Gold because he's got the right sort of,
time travel resume,
neutrinos or whatever in his thing. So he's the one who can go. He jumps through the hole and is immediately lost. He's in a world where Darkseid's symbol is everywhere, and it's dark and angry, and they lose contact with him, and now he's stuck there. And then what Josh didn't do is you flip the book over, and you get the rest of the story from Darkseid's perspective as drawn by Wes Craig.
It's gorgeous,
awesome.
Yeah, it was really good.
It looks like it's like Kirby and Walt Simonson and modern. It's gorgeous. The coloring is beautiful. Yeah, so I actually am looking forward to that. Most of the time, I'm like, I got more homework. By the way, tachyon particles, which I believe is Watchmen, right?
Also Star Trek.
Okay. But Watchmen.
Probably.
It's a real hypothetical particle.
Yeah.
Are tachyon are in Star Trek? Are they associated with time travel?
Probably. Or everything is associated with. You can just skip around the sun real fast in your time travel. Star Trek.
Fuck that! You can ask whatever kind of sandwich you want, and it makes it. That's amazing.
So, and so basically the gist of this story is that the absolute world is sort of inspired by Darkseid, whereas Superman is the inspiration for the main DCU. And it's a world based on hope. This new world is a world based on like anger and aggression and all the things I definitely don't want in my DC comics. So
I was gonna say that sounds angsty.
So we'll see. That's what the new books. We talked about this. We talked about the books on the show. The whole ethos. They're all alone. They're angry, and they don't have friends. And that's the ethos. But it's all based on Darkseid. So we'll see. But this is the book that sets that all up.
You got Booster popping around there. He's a good dude. Although to be honest, he was a little angsty by the end of it.
Well, they realized that his future was now gone, so he was trapped. He was going to go back home in the beginning of the story.
I guess if you don't make him comic relief, though, he's a boring, sad guy. You may as well be Animal Man. They're basically the same.
So, I mean, there's a lot going on between these two books, between Absolute Power and DCL and Special. Could have used a better title, honestly. It sounds like it's a preview book, but it's not.
Yes, it does. It sounds like a free comic book giveaway.
All In is not a great status quo name. It's really bad.
Neither is Absolute, though.
No, but that's a whole other problem. But that's not a status quo. I guess it is
brand confusion.
Yeah, it's huge brand confusion for Absolute. But all In just sounds really dull. And so when I
don't know what it has to do with anything either.
Right, it sounds like it's a poker thing. When I saw Batman and Birds of Prey both had All In logos on the cover, I thought, so I guess this is what we're calling it.
But if it's Justice League Unlimited, it means that all the heroes are in the Justice League. All
right,
in.
That's fine. I mean, that's totally fine. But I just think All In is just weird.
Are you
Anyway,
telling me we don't have a meritocracy anymore? Just everybody gets a trophy? What is this bullshit? Look who's running comics today.
Josh, I've got some terrible news for you. It was never a meritocracy.
What?
It was always privilege.
you know what was funny about Justice Society of America number 12? And I think this is sort of indicative of the entire series. Is that there was always such a delay between issues that I always felt like the new issue had absolutely nothing to do with the previous issue.
That was
like I was
true.
reading a whole new book.
I stopped reading it because every time I came back, I felt like I'd missed issues. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm skipping them or something.
And so this issue is Justice League of America number 12. This is the final issue of Jeff Johns' 12-issue miniseries. I guess returning the Justice Society to the DCU, but then there's a whole other thing coming. I don't know. But this issue should not have been Justice Society of America number 12. It should have been Stargirl
Special
Anniversary issue number 1. And I would have bought that, and I would have read it because I really like Stargirl, and it means a lot to Jeff. If you don't know, it's based on his sister who died in a terrorist attack. He created this character for her, named after her. Like it means a lot to him, and I think she's a great character. I really do. I love her TV show, but this entire issue is her speaking at her graduation for high school, and the Justice Society sort of just appear as background characters, and we see them through the various incarnations of the modern Justice Society. But really, it's not a Justice Society comic, and it was just bizarre. It was good. It was good, but it was not Justice Society.
I liked the issue. There's my staff and I have a joke where we'll come up with a plan for the week or even for the day, and we always talk about like, okay, how much of this can we get done in the morning because we have to be ready for the daily curveball. And this whole issue is about curveballs and the curveballs life throws you and what you can do to either alone with your own fortitude or together with your friends and family take on life's challenges. And I will admit, like, I thought it was a well-written speech, like as a graduation speech. It was uplifting and inspiring. And the moment, the stepdad moment of like, you're not the stepdad, you're the dad who stepped up kind of thing. Like, I actually got a little emotional. It was like, that was a really nice, touching moment between two characters that I don't know a ton about, but just, sort of dad feelings were happening. And I would say this issue hit me a lot harder than I was expecting it to when I started it.
I thought this was good. I thought it was really good. If you had made this pick week, I would not have been, surprised or upset. I just was like, what does this have to do with the Justice Society? What does this have to do with the story we just read 11 issues of? Nothing. And that's fine. It just shows you what a mess this whole thing has been. As Jeff Johns says goodbye to DC. This is sort of his last issue, I think, which makes sense that it would be about Stargirl. But man, I was just like, what was the point of all that? But whatever.
There's a little Jack Knight cameo, Josh. Still got the goatee in the year of our Lord 2024. Still rocking the chin stash.
He would be a guy who would stick with that. That's
Sticking
what
with
I
it?
believe. Yeah. Yes.
So, Josh, Get Fury number 6, the final issue of the latest Nick Fury, Frank Castle, out of continuity Marvel series from Garth Ennis. Boy, was that fucking bleak and dark.
Yes, it was. It was. What I would say about
very
this,
good.
Well, what I would say about this whole series is that there was a lot of things that I liked. There was a lot of things that I was impressed by. But did I enjoy it? Kind of for those reasons. Was it fun? Not really. It was like focused on the very, I was going to say worst parts of Vietnam, but that were good ones. But, the parts that people
he's very much focused on the unethical actions of the government, especially the CIA. And I think his entire ethos about Vietnam, I think, is really encapsulated in the first page letter that Frank is writing home to his wife. I think you can summarize, it's like the executive summary of how Garth feels about Vietnam is that page where it's like, why are we here? Everything we say we're going to do makes it worse. Like everything, like his sort of feelings on Vietnam are all laid out in that letter.
Yeah.
I thought,
like at the end, there's a rescue, but no one feels good at the end. Like the women are just slaughtered, and it was really well done and good. And I would keep reading it forever, and I will take more books from it. But like, I'm not going to read this again. It was such a bummer.
This is a trilogy, right? And he's done 3 of these.
I think at the end it was pretty sort of said he's now said everything he has to say about.
Right, I really
these
love the
characters
letters
of
column, and I
Vietnam.
want to talk about that in a second. But this technically leads into the other Frank Castle miniseries, right, where he goes to another.
Oh yeah. I think so.
He's like, we're going to send him somewhere where he can't be of harm to anybody, and I was
Right.
like, I don't think that's going to happen. But
They meant themselves. I will just say I had the thought through this, and we've touched on this. This isn't a new thought. But Jason Burrows, when he sort of started working, he works with he'll do as many of Garth Ennis's books as he's able to do, it seems like. And when he first started, I thought this guy's pretty good. And over time, he's okay. Like he's pretty good. He's okay. But like over time, I'm just like, oh, this is the new Steve Dillon.
Yeah, totally.
Like this is him. And I was like, I'm cool with it. Like it totally works. If he was like, I'm going to do another Preacher story or whatever, this would be the guy who did it. And I was like, it's a perfect, like he's found his new Steve Dillon, as horrible as that just was to say.
Yeah.
No, but he found it's a collaborator. He found a collaborator who he works really well with. And
I
it's unfortunate he's got to find one because Steve passed away. But I think your feelings of ambivalence are, the story is very much, it's super dark and depressing. So that totally understand. But also I think so many Vietnam stories are, like
yes.
I just I watched Platoon a couple months ago for the first time in probably decades, and it was a great movie. I don't ever need to watch it again. You know what I mean?
I think that I don't like Vietnam War movies that much because it's just all bad. And
right.
like
there's no hero. There's no reason why we're doing this. There's no good reason for this.
Like everybody on both sides is miserable, but the VC are at least motivated, from themselves, whereas the Americans are all just, what the fuck am I doing here? This is, it's bad. Everybody ends up with a drug addiction. And
I really like the letters pages where they had Garth answer them, which I'm sure he loved. And every letter's like, oh man, I can't wait for you to explore this part of Frank's life. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I can't wait for you to talk about teenage Frank. Yeah, I'm not doing that. He's like, guys, it's better to leave some things to the imagination. I just really liked his whole sort of, he wasn't grumpy, but I just liked his sort of matter of fact and just like, yeah, it was great. I mean, it was great, but also terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, last week we Josh and I got an early look at Skin Police #1. We mentioned it briefly on the show, and we talked about Jordan Thomas's other book that escapes me at the moment.
Mugshots.
Right. Mugshots, right. And so this week, Skin Police #1 from Oni Comics came out, written by Jordan Thomas, drawn by Daniel Minefield, last name Getty.
Oh man, I didn't have it open up.
Gete.
Getty. I don't know. Depends on where he's from. That makes sense. You just say that because it's Chinatown.
It's a Chinatown joke. Yep. Ryan, what did you think of Skin Police?
Forget it, Ryan.
It's just Giddy's.
Chinatown.
It's Skin Police.
It's Giddy's Town.
I really enjoyed this. I read it on recommendation from Josh, and I've been on a major sci-fi kick lately. I've always been a sci-fi nerd, but I would think of late, probably because of the 3-body novel series that I've been reading, I'm just like so hungry for deep, rich world building and interesting situations and tweaks on our society and the way things work. And so I went into this completely blind, completely fresh. And I think the concept itself doesn't immediately blow me away, that there are sort of there's a fertility crisis, sort of like Children of Men, which is one of my favorite sci-fi movies. But people have these illegal cloning operations, but the clones are unstable and will basically turn into sort of zombies and attack people. And so there's a police force that is sanctioned with tracking down these clones and taking them off the board. And we follow a detective who's very no-nonsense
They're
character.
called Blade Runners.
Right, yeah. And basically it's just like, look, I do the job they pay me to, and I don't ask the questions that I'm not supposed to know the answers to. And I loved his attitude with the situation. I thought it led to a good amount of world building where, like, he knows some things, but not all the things. And he's got his new recruit, sort of Dredd-esque with the new judge. And I just thought this was a really solidly put together first issue that exposes you to enough of the world that I felt like it was a good meal of an issue, but there's still more to learn. And I'm legitimately excited to see where this series goes. So thanks, Josh, for putting it in front of me.
Josh, what are your thoughts?
I don't like the title because I don't know what it's going to be, but I saw it and I was like, this sounds like it's going to be icky, but I really liked it. Hard sci-fi, but with sort of silly sci-fi costumes, but really like there's a science at the middle of it. It's not a monster. It's not crazy, future stuff, different world, very Dredd-like, in that way. I'm like, I didn't read it and think this is like Dredd, but when I back up, I go, I can see that. Yeah, I enjoy. It was very sort of classic in a way that I appreciated. If that makes sense, like it wasn't like here's the concept, here's the world. Like we've seen this done before. We've seen it done in other comics. British comics guys are best at this. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like it reminded me a little bit in the sort of police procedural, but the cops that we're following have a very specific job that's unique to this sci-fi world. It had like a top 10 or a chew vibe to it.
I definitely felt a top 10 thing going on in here.
And
just
that's high praise for me. I love.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a straightforward. I mean, it's the same. It's like there's a hard sci-fi element. Other than that, it's like a kind of straightforward cop drama. There's not, jokes. It wasn't funny, but it wasn't bleak. I wasn't like, ugh. Really, really enjoyable. I was happy.
Yeah, I think what I said last week was that I'm impressed with how quickly Jordan can build a world and make you understand it and understand the people in it, which is not nothing. I mean, that's something that a lot of comics struggle with, is really making you understand the stakes and the people and what the world is all about, especially in sci-fi or fantasy settings. There's so many of those books, but he does it really well.
There was one moment on the plane where the cop takes down the clone, and then somehow his ear got blasted off, and I don't think we really saw that occur, and that stunned me for a second.
The exhaust blows his ear off. You see it flying out.
Oh, it's the exhaust of the plane.
I went back. I found that as in the very first
but I did notice that he's like wearing a thing on that side of his head, and I didn't know if it was sort of Star Trek, where it's like now he's got a cybernetic ear that works better than his normal ear ever did, sort of Geordie-esque, but instead he just says to his wife, like, no, it'll grow back. Like this is the grow back device. And I was like, oh, that's all right, cool. I dig it.
Yeah, I think he's very good at that, and I quite enjoyed this. He's definitely. I mean, look, he's listening. He's a patron of our show, but I wouldn't say this wasn't true. He's becoming very impressive very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I've been enjoying all of the books he's been writing, and he doesn't do sort of mainstream stuff, so he's sort of on the edges here. He's at Oni Press, but he's doing really good work. I hope he gets to do more of it. So let's move on quickly to The Walking Dead. What year is this?
Well, this is not just The Walking Dead, my friend. This is The Walking Dead Deluxe, and it is Deluxe because the only credit I'm going to give to it is colors. What? Walking Dead in color by Dave McKeag. And this is issue 98. I've been reading this book. It's been fun to revisit this series in issues, especially because each issue contains the original handwritten sort of script page or plot breakdown by Kirkman, and then sort of another page of him reflecting on that plot breakdown and how it compares to the issue that actually made it to print. And that's been sort of a cool behind-the-scenes director commentary sort of view into this world. And the reason I wanted to bring it up in the show in particular is I don't know if I will be on again before issue 100, and I don't know that I can go through issue 100 again, so I might need to stop reading this book.
Interesting. Do you find the color... it adds it to it? I feel like it's such a black and white book.
I think I like it better black and white, but it's still, I mean, it's still a good hang. It's still The Walking Dead, still the series that did a lot for indie comics. So
was I the only one who read DC's I Know What You Did Last Crisis #1?
I didn't.
I would assume I am. That's fine if I am.
I got through part of it before we started recording, but I didn't finish it.
So
are you going to sell me on it or tell me not to bother?
Well, maybe. Depends on how much you like chaos. But so this is a one-shot, oversized 80-something page book that takes every story takes place in a different DC event, starting all of them in the era of the old DCU. So post-Crisis. So the first one takes place during Crisis. The last one takes place during Flashpoint. So all the events in that time period, except for Legends, the often forgotten event right after Crisis that no one ever talks about but was terrific, does not get a story in here. But I wanted to mention 3 stories. One, the opening story that takes place in Crisis about Batgirl by Cavan Scott, and who's a writer I've seen before. A lot of these people are new creators. They have been doing that with these showcases to showcase new talent. Mm-hmm. I really like that story. It's about her ennui as she's watching the world get eaten by antimatter, and what's the point of being a hero, and when that's happening. But she finds a reason to. I thought it was a very good story, and it just made me miss that Bronze Age Batgirl. But it's my favorite Batgirl costume, other than the '66 Batman TV show, but that has more to do with my sexual development than anything else. But this gray suit with the blue and the yellow, that's my favorite Batgirl costume. I like that story a lot. Story number 2 I wanted to mention, Josh, was written by our old friend Rachel Penelas.
Oh, yeah.
She was our coworker at Graphically. I've I see her throughout the year. I usually see her at Comic-Con, but I've kept in touch with her. She lives in LA now, but she's part of the latest. They do those classes of new people that they put in the program. Our buddy Dave Acampo was one of those people a couple years ago. But she did a Scarecrow story that I thought was really interesting and fun. What story was that? I don't remember which one that was during actually. Doesn't really matter. But the reason why I'm talking about this book is because for some reason they let Dan DiDio come back and kill off Nightwing like he always wanted to in Infinite Crisis. So they let Dan DiDio come back, and also for all these other stories take place in the DC universe, they all could fit within the stories. This one clearly does not fit. It takes place in some sort of alternate future where, in the middle of Infinite Crisis, Superboy finds Nightwing and says, "Listen, you were going to live through this, but you have to die because if you die, it will inspire all the heroes to be better." And Bruce and Diana and Clark will step aside and allow the new generation to come forward. And so you got to die. And so he dies. And I was like, what is happening? I thought it was hilarious. I loved it. He's whatever obsession. He's like, dude, you're not even running the thing anymore, but you're still obsessed with killing off Nightwing. Fine, come do it and just stop talking about it. I just thought it was really funny.
It's weird.
They did it. That's so weird.
It's so weird.
It feels very much like if I had done this, we would have had a whole new era of it was just ridiculous, and I loved every minute of how ridiculous it was. So strange. So fucking strange. Rachel's story was taking place during Blackest Night. So anyway, that's what happened in that book. Batman 918 or 153 is the first Batman issue of the All-In era. And this is Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez. If you recall, Josh, in the last Batman issue, that's when he moved to the city. He bought himself a mansion in the city. He started up a foundation. He got the billions of dollars that crazy other Batman had. He's got his fortune back. So this is like the closest you're going to get to reestablishing sort of the status quo and back to basics Batman. He's hanging out with Commissioner Gordon on the roof, although Commissioner Gordon is not the commissioner. He's now a PI. He's got a different jacket.
Are they drinking beers and throwing the cans off like on The Wire?
They should. They're drinking coffee.
That makes more sense.
And so the whole thing is that Bruce is now focused on his foundation, which is bringing affordable housing and social services and all the things that people spend too much time on social media think will cure society, even though we know money doesn't solve anything. And so the crime is down, and now the Riddler is no longer a criminal. Now he's a crypto entrepreneur. And
so he's still an asshole.
Yes. So he's actually worse now. I prefer him to be a criminal.
Yeah, same.
So there's a couple of things that happen here. Vandal Savage is still the commissioner. There's this new patriotic superhero that's got the police sanctioned in Gotham City. Vandal decides they need to arrest Batman. Someone kills the mayor who hated Batman. That's a big cliffhanger. However, two things here. One, the Court of Owls are back and they're secretly running the show. And two, Batman's chief financial officer, who's secretly in the bag for the Court of Owls, tells him that. So there's a whole argument earlier about how he's spending his money. They say he's spending too much of it on social services and not about making money. And he's like, doesn't matter. I'm the majority shareholder. I can do whatever I want. And so here she says, actually, your half your shares are being contested by your brother. And I went, oh fuck. We're back to that. And then I thought,
is that related to something that happened earlier, or
back in the Batman #1, your pick of the week when the New 52 launched was they introduced his brother, Lincoln, whatever his name was, and he was secretly
the vaguest memory.
He was secretly Thomas Wayne Jr.
Can I tell you the one thing I noticed reading this, Connor?
Yep.
When he slams his laptop shut in frustration, my laptop's like 4 years old, I think, and it only came with USB-C ports and one headphone jack. He's got an HDMI slot. He's got an old USB port, a new USB port, an SD slot. That's an old
Mac. That's a real old Mac. Yeah.
Like I mean, this is a guy who's famous. He maybe has one of the most famous computers in fiction, and is using the Bat computer, and he's using this old laptop at work. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Took me out of the story.
I'm looking at that page right now. I liked this, but there was enough in here that annoyed me that it's still, this era Batman is still annoying. But
I feel like Chip Zdarsky's role on this Batman book is to flummox Connor. Like it feels like it's really laser directed at flummoxing you in that like everything that happens if you have to describe it out loud is very annoying. But it's written by a writer that you really like. It's probably done very well, and it's an artist you love.
I would say read this, honestly. I think you should. But the thing is, on its surface, it seems like it's a more grounded, smaller scale Batman story. But then what it seems to actually be about is another hostile takeover of Wayne Enterprises. We just did this story.
I mean, the long lost brother or the brother we never knew about coming back. It's hard to complain about that if you're going to be a fan of Gosh.
No, I'm not complaining about that. It's just like, I forgot about that whole thing. Then I thought, wait, are we bringing him back too soon? And I realized, no, that was over a decade ago.
I mean,
and then I had a whole crisis of thing where I went down the rabbit hole about how I'm dying and all, okay.
Well, it also we had to watch Tony Stark go through this several times.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. It's the same.
We watch Oliver Queen go through it. We watch.
It's because you've got all these people who writing comics are spending all day on social media, and they are reflectively thinking that rich people are bad, and so we have to take our comic book superheroes who are rich and either take away their money constantly or have them do dumb things with it. And I'm not reading this story about real life. I'm reading a fantastical superhero story about punching people in the face. Like that, this doesn't work.
Have a guy who's rich and is just inherently like, let's not make him evil for just, I know
fiction.
What you're saying. Like, I don't agree. The thing is, like, I don't disagree with the fundamental problems behind all those, and or the idea really, but it's also just being overdone. So everybody's making the same point.
That's what I mean. They just had someone take over Wayne Enterprises and steal it from him. Now they're towing it again. Like that was just the second 2 arcs ago. It's like, we need another story here. Like, you got to be okay with them having Wayne Enterprises. You can't just have people constantly taking them.
Obadiah Stane.
Now I will say this, and this is also related to Birds of Prey 14. The old DC logo's back, the bullet logo. So that's awesome. But Birds of Prey 14. I just wanted to mention. Josh, did you read this?
Yes.
What happened to Sami Basri and leveled up?
Yeah,
I've always been a fan. I've always been a huge fan of Sami Basri.
Sure.
Going back to the Rick Remender stuff, and before that, this felt like Sami Basri by way of Jamie McKelvey, but more dynamic than McKelvey can usually do. I thought this was terrific, and I thought this was a great issue. That last arc did nothing for me. If this was the first issue of Birds of Prey, I would have been thrilled. Like, this was a great issue. Even though I didn't know who those 2 women were at the end who were fighting Bart. I have no idea who they were.
Yeah,
I should probably know, but I have no idea who they were.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure either. I've kind of enjoyed I was going to use this word in the old sense, but that's how younger people use it. And I sound dumb, but the vibe of this book.
Yeah.
I've very much enjoyed.
Hurts my soul.
I'm not saying it is one. I'm saying I'm using it in the old sense. Like, I would say something is legitimately something. I wouldn't say it's legit something. Wouldn't do it. But the point being, I like hanging out with these characters. I don't quite get whatever the overarching thing is. But, like spending time with what's her name showed up back in this one, who hasn't been around for a little while, from Wildcats, I think, didn't she?
No. Zealot?
Yeah, her. Was she back
was she in this?
No, maybe not. Maybe I thought one of those other women was. You know what? I don't know who that one is on the lower, but I love Barda in this book. Yeah. I love
Cassie.
I love Cassie. She's an awesome bit with her being undercover.
Yep.
And like, because you don't know what she looks like, I was like, I don't know what's going on. And they're like, it's Cassie. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I was surprised by that. And then there's a guy with a dashiki and a top knot, and he's one of the jerks who gets beaten up. So that's good. Or he doesn't get beaten up, but he should.
Well, I will say, Black Canary did not zap anyone with her new eye powers in this one, or mention that she had new eye powers. So that was a little confusing.
I'm a little mad at you for even mentioning it.
Listen, that happened in the other book.
I know.
Talk to Ryan.
It wasn't. I know it doesn't make sense.
We weren't going to talk about it if I hadn't made it pick. You're right, Connor. That's definitely on me. Sorry for bringing it up.
Did you read this, Ryan?
No, I'm behind on Birds of Prey. It's not.
This is a great jumping back on point. If people jump off it, this is look. Is what these new things are designed for, right? These new, I don't want to call them initiatives because I've got work brain, but these new status quos are designed for you to come back in the fold. It's nice and warm inside. We have cookies, and so you can start at these new ones. And so this is Batman 918 is a jumping on point. Birds of Prey 14 is a jumping on point. These are all.
I mean, there's an argument to be made. They literally just gave a bunch of random heroes patron powers. They just gave them dumb superpowers.
I think, get the lawyers on that. I think Kelly Thompson is kind of like, she's like a sleeper standout writer. Like a given issue, I'm not like, this was amazing. But taken in aggregate, and every time one comes out, for almost everything she's written for the past, 5 years, it's just a solid chunk of really enjoyable comic books. And so I'm kind of in, and I have a hard time like figuring out what I don't like about it, because I'm just like living in the little worlds and the relationships that are created.
She's writing the Absolute Wonder Woman book.
Somebody's got to do those books. They're paying somebody to do them, so that's what we do.
I just thought this was terrific. I really did.
Yep.
I thought, you mentioned earlier, Ryan, that you had a hard time finding, like, I know we have one more book to talk about, but like, I thought this book this week was great.
No, I'm
really
saying I had a really good time with my books. I would say none of them were like, the reason I had a time was because none of them was a standout, because there were a lot of strong books, and picking one to be above the rest was where I struggled.
All right. Cool.
But no fives.
I don't think so. I mean, I really, like I said, if I'd read Skin Police earlier, that it's possible, but and even Justice Society of America 12.
I don't understand what you just said at all. If you read it earlier, you would have liked it more than the books?
No, I might have. I think I tend to take more time. Well, not more time.
I know what you're saying.
I tend to read the books in the order I'm most excited to read them, and I didn't have Skin Police on my radar until you pointed it out. And so I think if I'd had more time to sit with it, it might have edged out Absolute Power. But that's
that's why I suggested it. Having read it, I went, yeah, I think you're going to like this.
I did. You were right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm a happy comics reader this week.
All right, folks. We're gonna keep doing this for a little bit longer. Everyone who is listening to us, the iFan base, it's time for the other audience survey. We said we mentioned this before. We've done it before. We just need some more responses. A bit. We can wrap it up.
They told us they had they didn't tell us this originally, but they had a threshold, a statistical threshold they needed to hit to make a number statistically viable for the entire audience, and we need about 50 more people. That is a tiny, tiny sliver of the number of people listening to this show. It's a tiny fraction of the audience.
As we've said,
but I just want to say, if you're listening to this thinking, well, 50 other people will take care of this. If you're all thinking that, none of you will. So I just want, if you're listening to us, this is a very short survey. It's easy. Fill it out. You just need 50 to do it, and then we can stop talking about it on the show.
All right. So it's gum.fm/ifanboy. It is pleasantly short. It is brief. I promise you that. You will not be stuck in there. We want to hear from you so we can keep making the shows. Helps the advertisers. We just did an audience survey recently. That one's for us. This one is for the distributor. We're just trying to improve the advertising experience, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff's quick and easy, free way to help support us. So if you don't want to do it for any other reason, just to help us out, please do that. It'll take you 2 minutes. As I said, that's gum.fm/ifanboy. Like I said, gum.fm/ifanboy. Thank you very much.
And I held back on umami, but that type of statistical analysis is called a power analysis. You're welcome.
I didn't know that. You can go to patreon.com/ifanboy to directly support the show. Unlock shows that has been happening. You're part of a great community on Discord and Facebook. You will get to vote on the patron pick. You can hang out. You can come to the monthly patron hangout as it happens live once a month. It is a good time. We appreciate everybody who does that. ifanboy.threadless.com is our merch store. There are 13 designs there that you can get on t-shirts and lots of other items. You can go to ifanboy.com/support, which is a PayPal link for direct donations should you like to do that. ifanboy.com/Amazon. As we get into the holiday season, I'd very much appreciate it if you were like, well, I'll just go through the ifanboy.com/Amazon link to buy stuff when you're doing all those things that you do around the holidays for people and sometimes for yourself. Let's all be honest. That just helps us out. Doesn't cost you a thing. Doesn't take away from anything. Bookshop.org is a local bookstore aggregator to help people order from local bookstores wherever it's appropriate. So we'll have those links on the site where we can put them. That brings us to the patron pick, where the patrons, is it a $5 higher level, I believe?
At the $5 higher level, everyone who's a patron of the show gets a vote to add a book to the rundown. Every patron gets a vote. One patron, one vote. And this week, it was not like a race. It was close in the very beginning for a minute, but was pretty sedate in terms of races. Hyde Street #1 was the winner from Image Comics. Jeff Johns, another Ghost Machine book. Ivan Reis, Danny Mickey, Brad Anderson, and Rob Lee, the Jeff Johns players. Hyde Street. Hyde Street.
It's a big cast, but yes, they're regulars.
That's
Hyde
funny.
Street. So I've been enjoying the Ghost Machine books that I've been reading, which has mostly been just Geiger and Redcoat. Josh has been reading also that other one,
Rook Exodus,
which he's been enjoying.
Mhm.
Hyde Street was good. It was very much a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
Very much on it, wearing it on its sleeve. Didn't quite understand everything that happened in it, but it was good. I enjoyed it.
I think that this is a book that if it had not been written by Jeff Johns, I would not have read it. But because of the sort of the volume and the variety that Jeff Johns has been putting out, and the books are very Jeff Johns-like in many ways, but also not in many ways, I'm finding that very interesting. And you know, if you're listening to this, and then you might know that like we have been reading Jeff Johns' book at a high volume for decades.
Right.
And so like we have seen like when we were, when I was getting back into comics as this thing was ramping up, that was when Jeff Johns went from being new guy to being a phenom to being one of the biggest names in comics, and then kind of disappearing for a little while. And now he's making comics again, but for the first time in this entire, 20 plus years, like he's doing his own creative work and he's doing a lot of it. But he must
have had a notebook.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And he's while he is he's definitely using skills that he got from doing superhero comics. Like he's doing like, it's really impressive to me in a way. And they're not all my favorite comics, but I like reading them because I'm just really impressed at like what this guy can do in other sort of genres, which I've never seen him do in all of that time.
He basically started doing comics the year we graduated college.
Yeah.
So that's our whole adult life. We've been reading these Jeff Johns books.
And, he's got basically everybody on his team is an all-star. Like he found some way, to pay for all of these, high-end pros who have been doing all those books with him at DC over the years. He's got Brian Hitch drawing a book for him. This is Ivan Reis. Brad Anderson is one of the top.
Who's drawing the Rook book?
Fabok.
Oh, Fabok. Okay, yeah. So these are all Jeff Johns guys.
No, so they're all like full on. He's not finding any new talent in Argentina for these. Like he actually, right. I think Ivan Reis is from Argentina, but you know what I mean. He's a veteran, right. And this book, despite of not really being interested in the premise or whatever, I was like, this is very good. Like the idea that the main guy is, I forget his name, but Mr.
X-Ray,
Mr. Xavier Ray. And he's the guy who started selling. He was an ad exec who started selling, X-ray glasses and this
all those stuff in comics, but that never wasn't real. Like
right.
the mer people and all that stuff. Yeah.
So and then there's basically it's the idea. This little corner, Hyde Street, where the wicked will find themselves stumbling into, and then they will have revenge taken upon them in some way or another. And then there's a mysterious scoreboard and score. I don't know.
To me, that was a very Jeff Johns, because for folks who weren't reading comics 10, 15 years ago, Bendis and Jeff Johns did this a lot, where there would be a reveal towards the end of an issue of like a chalkboard covered in stuff or some sort of scrapbook where it was like a bunch of mysterious stuff. And this is actually a little bit toned down version of it, but I think, probably somewhat lost inspired of just like, here's the mystery at the very end, this thing you don't understand that will be revealed as the story continues, which especially now that it's not being used as prevalently as it was back in the day, is still an effective technique for engaging my curiosity.
I think, Josh, your description of it was basically spot on. Like that's it sounds about right. Like I don't know if I even could have done that good of a job explaining it, just because it was a little not confusing, but just there was a lot happening. We bounced around in time a bit. There was a creepy little kid, a Boy Scout who seems like an evil demon, who seems to be Mr. X-Ray's counterpart,
nemesis, like kind of.
It seems like they're both competing for the same points in the scoreboard at the end, along with a bunch of other folks.
Sure. We find out that Mr. X or X-Ray, I have to look at it, but he wants to get back to the real world. Right. Like that's what we find out his motivation is. And like when we meet him, he's not a great guy. He's not evil. but he's just kind of like, whatever. We're gonna take money from kids by selling them crap.
Sure.
Which kind of evil, but not really. Like it's no one went broke from sea monkeys.
Don Draper-esque, and I think that's intentional.
Yes, there's arrow wise and place wise, yes. Personality wise, no. Yeah, but the whole I was looking at, I was like, like Ivan Reis wasn't really like one of my favorite artists when he was doing a lot of, but like
he's Brazilian, by the way, Josh.
Yeah, he's really fucking good. You know what
this
I mean?
Is also slightly cartoonier than he's done before.
Yeah,
there's definitely exaggerated human forms and gesticulations.
Mm-hmm. Danny Mickey is an incredible inker. I mean, that's the kind of money they're spending on these books. They have inkers. You know how often you see an inker in an image book? Fucking never. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's true. This is good. I liked it. I'm looking forward to more.
I did too.
I don't think I liked it as much as either of you did, but I did. I mean, it was
I didn't
good.
love it, but I liked it. I liked it enough to read another issue.
Map at the end, and I don't think I realized that there were multiple universes. I'm air quoting. I don't, and because it was the one.
Did you think the Rook book was part of the Geiger verse? Because I was never quite clear on that. If I'm being honest,
I thought they all kind of were. I thought that's what it was, and I didn't know that was its own thing. And I then remembered that there was one of these books. The family are the Hornsbys and Halo and the Rockefellers that I had read at some point, and I was like, I don't really like that. It wasn't as bad.
So Geiger and Redcoat are in the same universe. Rook's in its own universe, and Hyde Street is on its own universe with Devour. I don't know what that is.
Devour is teased at the end of this, and it's written not by Jeff Johns.
Oh, okay.
But there's more. There's more
you
in
can't
the
read them all.
There's more in the Redcoat. No. There's Junkyard Joe is also in the Redcoat.
Right. For some reason that's not on here.
These are just the ongoings.
Right.
Ongoing.
But I like Junkyard Joe.
Redcoat's great.
You guys talked about there never being a pleasant Vietnam story. Well, what about this plucky little robot?
A little bit.
Redcoat came out this week also and had a very interesting last page reveal. But
that book is either awful or fantastic, and I don't know, but I can't not read it.
So, Hyde Street #1 from Image Comics, Ghost Machine, Jeff Johns, Ivan Reis, Danny Mickey, Brad Anderson, Rob Lee. Ratings on Hyde Street out of 5. I'm going to give it 3.65.
I'm going to give it a soft 4.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really want to say 3, but it's not a hard 4. It's a soft 4, and I will read the next.
I think I'm down at a 3. I'll give it one more, but it didn't. It's.
Does that mean 4?
No, he's jumping the gun. So the other question.
I see. Sorry, I thought we were still talking about the score.
The second question is: would you have read this without the patron pick?
Probably not.
Yes, I did.
I would have for sure. Yeah,
I already had.
Yeah, and then the final question, Ryan, is sticking with it.
Yeah, I'll give it at least one more and see if, like I said, I didn't dislike it, but it didn't. It didn't hook me quite to the point where I'm super excited about the next issue. But I'll give it another shot to show me what it's got.
Totally get that. If it wasn't Jeff Johns, I wouldn't be talking. But I want to understand. Want to wrap my head around this guy.
Well, I mean, I think you take his name off the book and put some other random person's name in the book. I still thought it was a good book.
I mean, I didn't watch the Twilight Zone when it was airing. I assume you both did. In the 60s.
Not when it was airing.
He's making a joke. Although there was a re-release.
Yes, the re-release ones.
Sure. Yeah, the Jordan Peele.
I watched Tales from the Crypt when it was airing, if that tells you how old I am.
Tales from the Crypt.
Well, the difference I think with Jeff Johns doing this is that I know I can trust him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. So if you're on the fence about it in some way or another, I'm like, well, it's Jeff Johns. It's not like I don't know he can't close the deal. So what he's going to do is going to, have some level of value with an unknown. You're not necessarily going to give them that much rope.
Sure.
All right. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for voting. If you did, everyone should vote. Every patron takes a minute, takes a second, vote. And more votes, the more interesting the race gets.
Also, can I put in a plug for actually voting? You should all also actually vote. It's coming up.
Right. But we're talking about the patron pick. This is the most important thing.
All right, fair enough.
Well, that's the most important vote you can make.
It's the only thing that you can actually make a difference in. No.
Right.
I'm going to propose an electoral college for patron votes where...
I mean, it pretty much is that.
Yeah, there's the Facebook group and then there's a Discord group, and they have the electoral votes.
Can we implement ranked choice patron pick voting?
Nope.
No.
I think more Power Rangers books would make it through to the finish line if we did ranked choice voting.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Also, if you give it the $5 or higher level, you get a patron power live on the show. And this week, is Ryan's turn to give one out.
It is my turn indeed. And this patron power is going to badguise, which actually is fitting with the power that is to be bestowed.
But it's bad guys spelled kind of like Beetlejuice.
Right. But so it's a person with the guise of badness.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Yes.
And by understanding, I mean I unlocked my screen and looked how it was spelled.
There you go.
It's badguise. That's what I'm saying.
Badguise.
Badguise has a magic badge. And the way this badge works is it's a badge.
It's not badge guys.
I know. I came up. This power is independent of
I
the
apologize
name
for interrupting.
of the person.
It's bad form.
It's okay. Badguise has a badge that can morph like a mighty. It can morph mightily like a mighty morphin.
I'm out.
Into whatever badge Badguise needs in the moment to bluff their way through any situation.
Okay.
So like literally, Josh, at the bottom of the ski lift. Oh shoot! Forgot my lift ticket. Magic badge. This is a lift ticket.
He's got basically like a skeleton key for the world.
It's an all access pass
for badges. Yeah, like in terms of if you say we don't need no stinking badges.
Is a lift ticket a badge?
Well, he could have like a badge. He could have like a ski patrol badge, and that would get him on the lift or something.
That's different.
It can be. Yeah, it isn't always.
But like if he needs to get behind the scenes at a museum, if he needs to get through
an RFID chip.
If he needs to get through into a police station, if he needs to get,
basically he has access.
Yeah, but as long as he's got to remember to bring the badge. Which I imagine if you had this badge, you would never let it out of your sight. It's an incredible.
Right.
When I was a kid, and I still kind of feel this way, I always thought it was the coolest thing in the world to have a badge.
Sure.
You could just flash it. And go where you need to go. Like I thought that was just the coolest thing. Like here's my badge.
We made badges a lot, and like we were very excited to be able to get to like a lamination device, so we could like, or I really liked the flip ones, like the up and down flip.
Yep.
I think it was just a lot of cop shows on, and they would just
flash
the badge.
My wallet has one of those little flip things in it that you can supposedly. I guess you would put like a photo of your child in that, but I have a phone, so I don't need that. So I put my Metro card in there, so I can do the flip on the Metro to scan my Metro pass.
Mm-hmm. So awesome! All right, thanks for being a patron, bad guys. Patreon.com/iFanboy. And I think we should skip the email, right?
Skip it.
We're long.
Too long.
Too long. Sorry about that.
Still coming. 2
weeks in a row, but you're definitely getting on the next week's show. Sorry, emailer.
You're getting bumped like a mid-tier comedian off the card.
You keep getting bumped.
Matt Damon on Kimmel.
We will we'll have you on next week. Sorry. We went long with Frankie Valli. So you can still write into us. Contact@ifanboy.com. That's how you can write in, get on the show, this show, or the Media Explode. Put Media Explode in the subject line if you want to get on that show. Thank you. And then we are in the midst of a lot of shows. Last week we had our Watchmen Chapter 1 review, which actually the three of us on this very show were the ones who reviewed it. You can go find that on the feed behind this show. We didn't end up having the Talksplode this past week. Scheduling issues. We're bumping it to later in the month. But this coming week we'll have our Joker Folie Deux review. I have tickets purchased, and I will be seeing it and reviewing it for this coming week. And then a week after that, Media Explode, we're going to have our Megalopolis discussion. And then 2 weeks should be the Talksplode. And in 3 weeks is the Booksplode, The Dark Knight Strikes Again. But also in 2 weeks, this is very important, is our Pick of the Week 950 live show. We're going to be live streaming our 950th episode live. It's going to be happening on Friday, October 18th, starting around 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Just like always, we'll be talking about the pick of the week, the patron pick, and going right into your emails. So only 2 books that week before we get to the emails. And so you guys are as important as anything, making it a great show. And you make it a great show by sending in great emails for us to talk about. Send them in, put 950 in the subject line. We've already gotten tons of great ones. And like I said last week, the earlier they come in, the more likely you are to get on the show. So you still have 2 weeks to get them in. Interestingly enough, Josh, do you remember a couple weeks ago we basically said, write in and ask us about our top 5 artists? Do you remember
that? No. I mean, like vaguely. Like if you hadn't said it,
we were like, so someone asked us, we didn't have time. So we were, oh no, you asked me who my top 5 artists was. And I said, we don't have time for that. But that'd be a great 950 show email. Wink, 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 wink. Well, a bunch of people wrote in with variations on the theme, thinking they were being clever. Or assuming someone else would write in. And all of you did the variation. None of you actually have written in about the artist thing.
I gotta say, I like that about our audience. No one wanted to do the basic.
That's why I worry about the voting for the survey thing. All of you think everyone else is going to do it. But get them in, and no subject is off limits. All three of us will be on the show. We'll answer anything. Well, no.
I mean, you
can ask anything. We may not answer anything, but you can ask anything. No,
I don't think you've asked. I don't think you've asked me to be on the show yet. I mean, I think my schedule's free.
You ever think sometimes that was for a reason?
I do, yeah, often, and with great anxiety.
We've talked about the schedule.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
So once again, put 9:50 in the subject line. Get them in. I think we're going to cut up the emails off to the day before, but we'll talk to you about it as we get closer. But again, no subject is off limits, and let's have a good time. Let's have a good time and be safe out there.
And the answer is Luke.
That kid is back on the escalator.
Josh, your turn.
Sorry. I don't know why that popped in.
You're the kid.
You can find our... Yes, I am. You can find our library... I'm much more like Jay than you think. You can find our library of 1,406 shows at iFanboy.com, wherever podcasts are sold. Follow us at iFanboy on Instagram to find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. Sometimes for the best of the week in panels. Individually, we are CS Kilpatrick, J.A. Flanagan, and the one with the most charisma, Dr. at Ryan Haupt on Instagram.
You should put doctor in there.
You should change it. I would tell everybody.
Subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy. That's where you'll find all of our old video shows, and we post this show there every week. And that's where the show will be live streamed. Just hint, hint, wink, wink. Please consider writing us a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Helps people find the show. It's the easiest thing you can do. If you can't support us in another way, we always appreciate a review or a star rating. Thank you very much. My name has been Connor.
I remain Ryan. Dr. Ryan.
Ooh, that was smooth. That was some James Bond shit. I'm plain old Josh Flanagan. That's what my name sounds like in upstate New York. Josh Flanagan.
Upstate New York, where you got your degree.
Yeah, my stupid bachelor's degree at a college.
You just got the one
television production.
People, we were just the one, and I don't use it.
I mean, I got 2 and then a couple more degrees after that, but it's fine.
We can't talk about this. Last week, people don't know, is we cut 10 minutes of us talking about college out of the show. And so we can't do this again.
Oh, you just went to college? I was talking about grad school.
Honestly, in my mind, you just got out of college. I think, what was it, Paul the other day? It was like, I'm 40 or almost 40 or whatever. And I was like, Nope. Exactly. There was
Incorrect.
a kid. It was my last job. There was I say he's a kid because I hired a kid and he was 23 at the time and he'd never had. He was 6 months out of college, and I was texting with him today and we haven't worked together a while. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm 30 next week." And I was like, "Mother, that just happened."
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.